Horn or antler, or anyway. I didn't know there could be two unicorns. That's all for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more MTV Daily. We're searching for the second unicorn now. The Beat with Ari Melber starts right now. Good evening, Ari.
Good evening, Chuck. Thank you very much. We begin tonight with the first time the American public has ever heard a recording of Donald Trump speaking when he thought no one was listening to his lawyer, Michael Cohen. This tape is by Donald Trump's former lawyer, and it is of their private conversations, and it's about not normal planning or random stuff. Just take in tonight what we're talking about. Secret payments allegedly planned to be made to a former Playboy model who claimed she had a relationship with then-candidate Trump. So let's break down exactly what we know and don't know. Not everything on the tape is bad, for example, for the president. But let's go through it. Here's part of the tape where they appear to be discussing buying Karen McDougal's story from the National Enquirer. Now, this audio originally broke on CNN, but Michael Cohen's current lawyer, Lanny Davis, has authenticated it for NBC. We have not confirmed, though, what happened around the tape, whether it was edited or altered. Take a listen.
I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David, you know, so that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
so what are we going to
funding. Yes. And it's all the stuff, because, you know, you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be. Correct. So I'm all over that.
He's all over it. What they're discussing appears to suggest concern about a third party owning this story, this claim that could be problematic for Trump, even if the third party would be the longtime friend referred to as David, which, given what we know about the story, is widely understood to be David Pecker, a friend of Donald Trump's and the owner of the National Enquirer. So let's go through three key things. First, after months of hints, there is now actual proof Donald Trump's lawyer was secretly recording him. Second, Trump does appear to have known about aspects of this arrangement for a tabloid to try to help him by buying McDougal's story. That means the denies from his camp about it were lies that he directed. Third, there's an implication here of some type of plan to use this third party, a tabloid company, to benefit Donald Trump. With that in mind, listen to more from the recording.
You never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be. Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
What financing?
We'll have to pay you. So no. I got... No.
Hey, no, how are you?
No, don't pay cash is a clear and important message that Cohen wanted to impart. Then, to be clear and to be fair, that tape abruptly ends. Now, Trump's lawyers and Cohen's lawyers are fighting all about what it means, what's on the tape, whether this is a fair rendering of the facts. Trump said he wanted to pay in cash. It appears, but there's a debate about that as well. The central point, though, here is the question of whether Trump, Cohen, or this tabloid broke any laws together or separately. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Cohen did set up a shell company to buy McDougal's story. That shows intent to make this happen. Also reporting that he didn't purchase the rights. But was there any other some other form of payment? Was there some other plan or conspiracy, to use the legal word, to make this all happen? Or did it never happen, in which case, as Donald Trump has argued, maybe it's not so bad after all? And was everyone honest when speaking to the authorities in person or through documents about this? And another big question after all the buildup with this tape out. When you take it all together, in fairness, does it help Donald Trump or does it hurt him? That's a question we begin with former federal prosecutor John Flannery and Leo Wright-Rigueur, professor at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, with more experts on the way. But I wanted to get your view as a prosecutor, not as a critic of some of Donald Trump's policies or a critic of his judgment. Does anything on this tape, in your view, legally hurt the president?
Absolutely. And in fact, if you listen to the beginning of the tape, there's a very interesting thing happening. You hear a rustling, which I think means Cohen turned on his recorder before he went to the meeting, and he knew he was going to tape it. And it goes off when he says, no, a check. Cohen was protecting himself, and when he got to the meeting, he probably took it out of his pocket, pretended to be checking email, and put it down between the two of them, and then taped the conversation.
Now, you're putting out a theory. You don't know that for a fact, but it's an interesting theory. You're suggesting that it was bad stuff that Cohen wanted to get on record for himself. No, I'm not about some secret cash payment that could blow up in our face.
No, I think it's worse than that.
Okay.
See, I think he knew before the meeting what the meeting was about. That's my inference from this evidence, because I've had tape recordings in which it's all muffled because the thing is hidden in a jacket pocket somewhere, and then he gets there and he takes it out, you know, and he plays with it and he puts it down and he tapes the conversation from that point on. We see the context is entirely about campaigns. They're talking about pastors in the South, and he has some pretty gruff talk about that. They talk about, are we going to have to worry about my divorce? Is any of that going to come out before the election? So the whole context is the election. And then they talk about, you know, can I trust them to have this? Maybe we should do something to protect myself. You know, should we buy it? How should we do this? Now, I think here's the interesting thing. Trump is the kind of person that if you tell him, oh, no, we should do by check, you think he doesn't come back and do it by cash. And consider Pecker's position.
Although that is, again, that's conjecture. What I'm interested in tonight is whether the stuff on the tape is bad for him. Let me also go to Leroy Rigor on whether this is maybe sometimes worse for Cohen than Trump. This is a man who had a professional obligation to his client. He hasn't been released from that obligation, and he bragged about his loyalty in that obligation. Take a listen to him talking about attorney-client privilege.
I'm going to be the personal attorney to Mr. Trump. I'm going to remain technically in the same role for Mr. Trump, for President Trump, as I was when he was president of the Trump Organization.
So can I assume that in that role, not being a government role, that you'd have attorney-client privilege with President Trump?
Yes, of course.
It would appear Michael Cohen's breaking that privilege today.
I don't think Michael Cohen cares right now. I think Michael Cohen cares about what Michael Cohen's, what's going to keep Michael Cohen out of the hot seat. And so there have been rumblings. I know his lawyer said that he is willing to make deals, that he is willing to talk. And that's what I think Donald Trump should be really concerned about, because now we're talking about somebody who knows where the bodies are buried. He knows all of the dirty and salacious details. I mean, we already know that Donald Trump has a complete disregard for ethics, for rules, for regulations. But now we actually have somebody on the inside who is saying, well, no, actually, I have tapes and this is how it was done. So right now, Michael Cohen is concerned about getting himself out of any kind of legal or criminal process.
I think it's important what you say. If the bodies were lawfully buried and died of natural causes, he still has an obligation to his client. If he was part of burying bodies that he killed, then the crime fraud exception and other obligations would kick in. I want to broaden this out to two people who also know where some bodies are buried. Howell Raines is a friend of ours, a former executive editor of the New York Times, who's been covering many people involved in these stories for a long time, and Madison Gessiato, who has been on the Trump Campaign Advisory Board and brings to us a perspective. I wonder your response on behalf of the Trump perspective hearing all of this.
You know, as the former prosecutor said, it was a muffled tape because of the way it was recorded. So I think what we're seeing going around the media today is a lot of people are saying they're hearing one thing, a lot of people are saying they're hearing another. So it's very much of a Yanni Laurel situation. And I think until we get more clear tape, we're not going to be sure what we're hearing.
Now, who is Yanni? Is Michael Cohen Yanni?
I don't know. You know, we might not agree on that. But when it comes to Michael Cohen, I know Michael. I'm extremely shocked by what he did. As an attorney myself, I can never imagine recording my clients without their consent or without them even knowing that I'm doing so. I don't think that's ethical. And he's really on his worst behavior right now.
Are you disappointed in Michael? Do you think he's done something wrong with respect to his obligations to Donald Trump and the campaign you both served?
I am disappointed, absolutely.
Howell?
I won't get into whether I'm disappointed with either the president or Michael Cohen. Let me say I'm not surprised. But this Cohen-Trump soap opera is going into its second year now. And to me, the big news this week is we got a new actor, and that's Lanny Davis. And Lanny Davis, I've known for quite a long time. He got his black belt in street fighting, defending Bill Clinton during the Monica Lewinsky thing. And I see this is Davis and Cohen serving notice, not just to the president, but to Rudy that you're no longer the only bully on the block.
And that they'll take control of news and events. Exactly. There was much speculation about why we're hearing about this now and where does it fit into other important stories, which we're also covering on the show, from border security and immigration issues to the questions over Putin, which we're actually covering later tonight. But let's listen to Lanny Davis, who confirmed that he is the source of this tape, as I mentioned, because that tells you this is material they do think will hurt the president. Here's more from Lanny Davis as this story broke.
And there are more tapes of Donald Trump? There are certainly more tapes that Mr. Cohen has discussed that he normally did in order to take notes. He used his telephone. Beyond that, I'm not going to comment.
So I'm hearing more tapes, Howell, and a kind of a defense that I don't think is that good for a lawyer. Oh, I was secretly recording to take notes. Most lawyers would say, if you're doing something on behalf of your client, it doesn't need to be a secret. And you would say, Howell, let's memorialize part of this. I'm going to turn this tape recorder on. That's not what happened here.
No. It's not, but, you know, I think, again, the bigger picture, this administration and this particular episode had become a hospice where reputations go to die.
Beautiful.
And so, again, to repeat, with Lanny's entry, now I think we've got big, muscular players on the field who may not be afraid to bend the rules.
Well, given the writer that you are, it is a flourish of a phrase. I give you the rebuttal.
We don't know who's on the other tapes. We don't know what's on the other tapes. Again, to skepticize at this point, I think it's too early. And I really believe that what he did was wrong, and that's a separate issue, obviously, that if these tapes are coming out, they've waived attorney-client privilege in terms of letting them out. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, I think we're very close to Lanny cooperating. I'm not so sure that we have Mr. Cohen cooperating yet. And I think that if he were, the Southern District wouldn't have allowed this to happen, and it might blow the whole deal. I'm also interested in, if we follow the scenario that they were having in that conversation, if you went to Mr. Pecker and you said to him, do you mind selling us this? I think he would say no. He'd say there's no trail away from me. It appears to be a judicial, it appears to be a newsman's decision not to run the story. If you come in and buy it, then you reveal exactly your role in the entire event. Well, but he might have wanted to be paid. This is again, a hypothetical investigation.
To use a legal term, this is the funkiest part of the whole story, which is, what is a self-declared tabloid media publication doing in the middle of this? And that was something I pressed Ms. McDougal's lawyer on about this, because again, I want to be very precise. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump did something wrong, although he could have, but it does mean that this tabloid is here doing what? Political favors for a presidential campaign, which they're not authorized to do under law. I want to play and then get your response.
Okay. Yes.
This is her lawyer on that question when we discussed it.
All right.
If your client made this deal with the National Enquirer, why was Michael Cohen involved?
I mean, it's the $64 million question.
Or is it the $130,000 question, depending on the case?
Yeah, yes, 150 in ours, but
150
you know, 20,000 over there, yeah. I mean, at the end of
you don't know?
We don't know, no.
Do you think it's nefarious?
Of course it's nefarious.
Of course it's nefarious.
I think it's a $25 question, because why does a tabloid with the high standards that the National Enquirer have walk away during an election, pays $150,000 when the election is in November, and decides, oh, it's not up to our high standards? Or is it the long-standing relationship with Trump and the conversations had with Cohen, and probably Trump, who's his friend, who is more concerned that he get killed in traffic to own the story?
If they did that for political benefit,
done,
or lied to authorities about it, are those both felonies?
Yes, and I would be interviewing Pecker tomorrow if he hasn't been interviewed by the Southern District yet.
Ooh, all I got to say is that right now I'm sure Donald Trump is out there listening to some Cameron and wishing that people would stop snitching, because this is all bad. This is all bad. No matter which way you cut it, even if we say, okay, nothing illegal was done here, it looks incredibly bad. Yeah. We have another case of a cover-up. We have, the National Enquirer acting as essentially a propaganda organ, or doing political favors that they shouldn't have been doing. And then then we have, you know, a trusted lawyer breaking that confidence, or at least a lawyer's lawyer breaking that confidence to say, I'm ready to, you know, to speak. I'm ready to talk.
Right. Well, you're saying Cameron said no snitching. Yeah. I think it was Kanye who said, I got a lawyer to keep what's in my safe safe. And tonight we're learning what is in Michael Cohen's safe is not safe anymore. I want to give special thanks here to John Flannery, Howell Raines, and Madison Gessiato, and Leo Wright-Rigor. Stay with us. We've got some special Beat anniversary stuff later on in the night. But coming up, Michael Avenatti's here live to talk about what he thinks the tape means. He did call that it was coming. Also, Donald Trump punting on that very controversial summit with Putin as one of his top aides gets grilled on Capitol Hill.
The president tell you that he discussed relaxing Russia sanctions or not? Yes or no?
Then the presidents are entitled to have private meetings.
And new hints about the Trump bubble. He was apparently enraged when a TV near him was not turned to Fox News. All that. And our very special panel on a special edition of The Beat. We're celebrating our one-year anniversary.